There's a lot of action in Safari's preferences, and some of it can alter your browser experience. Let's march through them now. And the first preference is general. Safari doesn't have to be your default web browser. If you have another web browser installed, such as Chrome or Firefox, you can choose it from this pop-up menu whenever you encounter some kind of web link, let's say in an email message, for example. Click on it. Instead of Safari launching, in this case, Firefox would launch. Take that back to Safari. Default search engine, Google is the default, but you can choose Yahoo or you can choose Bing. We've looked at some of this configuration before, so we don't need to go over it again. New windows open with, and then you choose how you want your windows and tabs to open. You can remove your history items after a certain period of time. We're going to talk about privacy and Safari in another movie, so we'll save that for later. By default, downloads go to the downloads folder, but you can have them go somewhere else. If you want to click on Other and have them go to your desktop, for example, just select Desktop, click Select, and your downloaded files will go to the desktop. I will say I don't recommend doing that because after a while, your desktop is going to be completely cluttered with stuff, and that's not a great idea. You can remove items from your downloads list. We're also going to look at that in privacy. Appearance. If a website isn't configured to show a particular font, you can choose which font it will show, again, if that's not hard-coded into the site. Bookmarks, you can decide what's going to be in the bookmarks bar. By default, it includes reading list, top sites, but you can also include address book. So any contacts in your address book that also have a website associated with their contact will appear in this address book list. Also include Bonjour. If there are any network devices that use Bonjour that you can access some features from via your browser, they will appear there. Bookmarks menu, same idea. You're just configuring this so you either include address book items and Bonjour or not. Tabs, when you open pages in tabs, you can choose to open pages in tabs instead of windows. By default, it's never, automatically, or always. Depends how you like viewing your web browser. By default, Command-click opens a link in a new tab. I think that's a great feature, so leave that on. RSS. I've talked a little bit about RSS. By default, Safari is the RSS application. You can also choose Mail, or if you have an RSS reader application, you can direct RSS there instead. And then there's autofill. If you're filling out a web form, you can use the info that's in your address book card. So let me click Edit here, for example. It will open address book, and it will show my card. So if I'd entered an email address here, and then I'm filling in a web form, it would automatically insert that address into the web form. I can also store usernames and password. There's a little issue with security here. If you're the only one using your Mac, this is perfectly fine to allow this to happen. But if others are going to be using it, I would not turn this on because if there's a stranger sitting at your computer, you don't want them filling in a username and a password for some kind of retail site, for example. There's security built into Safari, so it will warn you if you seem to be entering some kind of fraudulent site. Other things, plugins, Java, JavaScript, block pop-up windows. Again, as for web content, there are some malicious web pages out there, something that you're not going to encounter very often. But if they are, you can choose to disable some of this stuff so they can't automatically divert you to another website, for example. Privacy, we're going to talk about that in another movie. Extensions, these are things that you can add to Safari to enhance its capabilities. Click on Get Extensions and you'll go to Apple's extension site. Let's suppose that I wanted to include Twitter in Safari as an extension. I could simply install that now. It installs it and it will now appear in extensions. And then I can decide whether I want to enable it, I can disable it, I can also uninstall it. Just a word of warning, I wouldn't overload Safari with extensions. Sometimes when you pack it with too many extensions, things can get a little funny. And if you don't want extensions on, you can simply turn them off using this button. And then there's advanced. There's some universal access settings. So if you have a hard time reading small print, you can expand that. And these other settings are things that most people don't need to worry about. And that's it. A rundown of Safari's preferences. Some of them could be useful to you, so spend some time with them and see what you think.